So, welcome back to the second cafe, Danish online cafe for absolute beginners. With Chloe, with iPad Chloe, we have learned how to order a few things in the bakery, and we'll take you through the dialogue, and then we will do. Um, well, to be honest, we will skip the dialogue because we've just done it with Chloe, and we need to go into the basic questions of speaking Danish. And I have this document called 200 questions. Questions in Danish is 200 spørgsmål. I will share it with you. Let me show you. Can you see the document, Chloe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. And so 200 questions. And the first question is, of course, what's your name? And already at this very first question, it says, Hvad hedder du? But what we're actually saying is, hvad hedder du? And it means the H is silent, hvad, and then the H in HVAD, which means what. And then hedder, what's going on here? Chloe, can you hear when I say hedder? There's a bump in my breathing. Hedder.
Mm-hmm. Glottal stop.
A glottal stop, exactly. So it looks something like this, hvad hedder du? And not only is there a glottal stop, this double D is actually not a hard D. So a hard D would be a hard D that you can hear, for example, in the word Denmark or du. And a soft D is where you somehow keep your tongue behind your lower front teeth and say, hedder, hedder. And you look very silly the first many times you try and do the soft D. But the most important rule with the soft D and for many vowels in general in Danish is that you keep your tongue stuck behind your lower front teeth and you look like this. Hedder, hedder. Can you say that?
Helda.
Good. So in case your tongue doesn't stay behind your lower front teeth and it goes up, it will create an L sound. So if you ever had to sing in the shower or whatever, and you go like la 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 la, your tongue is going up, right, and touches your upper teeth, your upper front teeth, la la la, and that creates the L sound. And for you to do this, the soft D, whatever happens, your tongue must not go up and touch your upper front teeth. It has to stay behind your lower front teeth. So it goes like, hedder, hedder.
Helda.
That's perfect.
Helda.
Great. And then you combine the three sounds. Hvad hedder du?
Hvad hedder du?
Yeah. And so you see, we make a question just saying what, and then verb. We could say what called you, but that makes no sense in Danish, in English, right? So it's basically what's your name. But we do a question with the question word what, hvad, then the verb hedder, which is called, and then the subject du. Hvad hedder du? Yeah. So this gives us a couple of things. For example, it gives us a pronoun like a subject, which is du, right? Du is you. What about I? And for that, we have this table up here, which is full of all kinds of pronouns. The subject pronouns are the ones we need for us to start a sentence. And you will see here, the I in Danish is jeg. But once again, we don't say jeg, we say something like this, right? Ja. Ja. Very good. Ja. So if we go back to our question, what called you? What's your name? Jeg. Ja. Then you say the same verb, exactly the same verb. Hedder, don't forget the soft D sound. Hedder. And in your case, Chloe. right? Jeg hedder Chloe.
Jeg
And
hedder
then,
Chloe.
perfect. And for the sake of the conversation, then you can ask me, what's your name?
Hvad hedder du?
Perfect. Hvad hedder du? And then I say, jeg hedder Erwin. Jeg hedder Erwin. Instead of repeating, what's your name? You could also say, what about you? What about you? And the good thing about what about you is that you can use that for any question you've just received and you want to shoot it back at the other person, right? So my students like that this basic question. So it's what with you? Hvad med dig? Literally, what with you? It means what about you, right?
Mhm.
And in terms of pronunciation, hvad med dig? Something like this, dig. Hvad med dig? Yeah,
Hvad med dig?
sounds great. And then I say my name. Now, question to you, Chloe. We have a personal pronoun here, which is subject, jeg. What about this one, du?
Subject as well, you.
Perfect, great. In a question, great. And what about this one, hvad med dig? It looks different, dig, hvad med dig? What's going on if we look in the pronouns table here? Can you identify the die, which is?
Indirect or?
Yeah, actually we just call it a non-subject, or it's kind of an object. What with you? Die. It's this one. So we distinguish whether it's a subject or non-subject for now. Hvad med dig? What with you? You don't need to remember this, but it's just to let you know that you will see different variations of these pronouns depending whether it's a subject or not a subject. Then the next question is, what's your last name? But to be honest, we're going to remove that one because when you do beginner Danish and you just want to have a small talk with Danes, you don't need to say your last name. And also we're recording this session, so let's keep information a little, private. But next question typically is like the Danes want to know where you're from. So the next question could be, hvor kommer du fra? Hvor kommer du fra?
Hvor kommer du fra?
Very good. Hvor kommer du fra? So hvor, as it says in the translation, is where. Kommer is come. So if we were to reconstruct the sentence, where come du is you, and then where, also not what, where come you from? So what we do in Danish for questions, we do question word plus verb plus subject. Does that make sense? Hvor is the question word, or HV, we also call it HV word. All the words starting with HV are very often question words. Hvor kommer du fra? So we have hvor, question words, comma, the verb, and then the subject, du. That's a very typical construction. Yeah. So now you already know two question words. You know the question word what and the question word where. Yeah. So you want to answer this question. You want to say, I come from, let's say, France.
So
How would you say I come from?
jeg kommer fra Frankrig.
Great. And you know the Danish word for France? Did you look it up or have you heard it before?
I heard it before.
Yeah. And it's great that you say Frankrig, which is silent G, We don't pronounce the G. Germans, because they will say Frankrig, Frankrike. Jeg kommer fra Frankrig. Super. And then I could ask you, you could ask me, what about you? Where do you come from? How would you say that in Danish?
Hvor kommer du fra?
Yeah. And what is the question if you want to say, what about you?
Hvad med dig?
Fantastic. Hvad med dig? And as you said, hvor kommer du fra? And then I can say, jeg kommer fra Danmark. Jeg kommer fra Danmark.
Mm-hmm.
What about the verb endings? So if you look at the verb here, hedder, what's the ending for the verb hedder? It's just er, right?
Mm-mm.
Hedder. Does it change when I say my name is? Jeg hedder? No, it's still
Mm-hmm.
What about where do you come from? Come from. Also er. Kommer. Comma. So the great thing in terms of grammar in Danish is that the verb endings don't vary. They don't change depending on the subject or the pronoun you use. Always the same
Mm-hmm.
ending. Very often it's er, and it doesn't change. Like in English, you will have I eat, but he or she eats. And in French, as you know, of course, as a French speaker, there is a different ending for each of the subject pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do one last question before we finish this session a little bit early, because I'd love to go and to the other Advanced Learners Cafe and say hello to the speakers, because they have a new cafe host. And then you have some time for tomorrow or next time to practice those three questions with your Danish surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Next question could be, what do you speak? What languages do you speak? If you say you're French and so on, everybody, oh. So you can say, what speak you? Hvad taler du? Where we again use the question word hvad. Taler is speak, right? And do.
Mm-hmm.
Notice again, very similar. You have the er ending, taler. Taylor, you have to know that Taylor is speak. What speak you? But about the question structure, again, we have question word starts with HV word, then we have the verb, and then the subject. If you want to be a little bit more elegant or refined in your question, you could say which sprog, tough word, languages, and it's more like a sprog, sprog. Very good. Hvilke sprog, languages speak you? Again, same structure in the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then you would have the same structure to say I speak. How would you say that?
Jeg taler fransk.
It's great. That means French, yeah. Anything else?
Spanian is the country. I don't know how to say Spanish.
Almost. And if you know Spanish, if you look at the construction of French, it's just ANSK, and it happens to be the same for Spanish. Spansk.
Spansk.
Mm-hmm.
Og engelsk.
Beautiful pronunciation of engelsk. It's good that you get rid of the G, because we don't pronounce it very often in the middle of the word. We just say with a glottal stop. Something like something like this. Engelsk. I'm trying to put the Danish vowel sounds. Elsk. Engelsk. Does that make sense? Engelsk.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And then I would say super. And then you could say, what about you?
Hvad med dig?
Fantastic. And then you can ask me also, like, what do you speak?
Hvor hvad taler du fra?
Yeah, you don't need fra. That's just from. It could just be hvad taler du.
Yeah.
And then I would say, jeg taler dansk, Danish, fransk, French, fransk, and like you, of course, English, and the and is more like uh. It varies depending on where you are in Denmark, how much you want to emphasize, and you will say oh, but if it's just a word that is not emphasized, you would just say So I would say dansk, fransk, og engelsk, og engelsk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much all for today, because as I said, I need a few minutes to say hello to the other cafe guests. But Chloe, if you have the time, feel free to just run through these 3 questions. Maybe try and ask those questions to someone around you. And if not, just ask me those questions tomorrow if you can make it for tomorrow's session. And I'll try and advertise again so that more people will join. And I know that Ching is most likely joining again tomorrow. And she has done these basic questions also previously. So the ideal scenario would be that you guys start having a little one-to-one conversation in Danish based on the first few questions you have learned.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sounds great.
Cool. And then, of course, a bit of marketing for my own website. Yesterday, we talked about the Danish numbers, and I can just let you know that on my website called Learning with Irvin, we have um, a video catalog called Full Catalog, and here you have the Danish numbers called numbers 1 to 10, and you also have the numbers 1 to 100. And the video 1 to 10 is in free preview, so even if you don't sign up and pay the 25 kroner for the access per month, you can just go and listen to the Danish numbers 1 to 10. Feel free to practice and have a look at those resources if you want to. No pressure,
Mm-hmm.
of course. You can see the video is here and listen to that with the pronunciation and so on. Good. Any last minute questions or comments?
No, just thank you for the lesson.
My pleasure. You are lucky that it's kind of a one-to-one free lesson because no one else is here for now, but that might change. So keep it
Mm-hmm.
up and thank you for taking part in today's cafe.
Mm-hmm. Tack.
Vi ses.
Vi ses.
Hej hej.